Hey guys, guess who's finally back with another video? Okay, I expected that. Anyways, if you don't know me, the name's Spicy Charizard. And if you're living under a rock, same. But you otherwise wouldn't have known that Attack on Titan is over. Fucking finally. I'm not going to be the first to say that this final act was heavily milked from his cash cow teats, but what I want to address is my thoughts on the series conclusion, and honestly, how it made me feel. Fair warning just before we begin. I will be discussing spoilers regarding the ending as much as I try not to, so if you have yet to see the ending and if you're planning to, there's your warning. Please proceed with caution. However, before we start, we need to backtrack a little bit. So let's first travel back in time to 10 years ago. In the year 2013, anime was a very small niche. The ones that everyone was talking about at the time were Dragon Ball Z and the Big Three. But it was still a thing that was only kept to a small circle as people were scared to let each other know that they watch anime, in school at least. That was until a phenomenon named Shingeki no Kyojin, if you want to be extra weeb about it, took the world by storm. Everyone and everywhere on what little social media was back then was posting and talking about this series. It had an intricate storyline in the beginning, managed to hook those in and out of the weeb scene, had people wearing the suits and doing the salutes of the Survey Corps, and finally had everyone bop their head and scream out this theme song. Jäger! It is truly without a doubt that Attack on Titan not only is one of the biggest anime IPs in the world, but personally, I'd say it's the reason that anime even became as gigantic as it is today. Hell, it's even considered to be the Game of Thrones of anime. It was the gateway for non-anime watchers and made those once ignorant to the genre into massive die-hard fans to every new series that came out since. It is truly, in my opinion, one of the most influential animes in the entire world. However, as much as I can gush over the good things about it, over time, I started to lose interest with this series. What killed it for me, in all honesty, was this final season. First off, we've been on this fucking season since the pandemic. For an entire 4 years. And before anyone wants to talk about how MAPPA needed time to animate all of this, animation takes time. It's not their fault Wit dropped the ball. The Titans are still in CG, even in this newest episode. They clearly didn't have enough time to animate it, and the proof is in the pudding, and clearly has been since they picked up the anime back when Wit Studios dropped it. Not to throw dirt to the anime stuff, of course. But more importantly, this is where the story of Attack on Titan started to lose me, if I'm honest. We went from the highest point in the story, the entirety of Season 3, the whole arc with Kenny and the awesome character growth with Historia, to the Return to Shiganshina arc, and of course the infamous basement reveal, to then everything being a convoluted mess. Characters that had once been my favorites started to become sorely uninteresting, uninspiring, and just flat out ridiculous. And those who weren't ended up dead. An example being the character of Levi, who I've never really cared for, to tell the truth with you. And after the whole reveal of the Ackermans being special thing or whatever it was, I couldn't care for what happened to them throughout the remainder. But the character that really did it for me, that took out most of my enjoyment, was the main man himself, Eren Yeager. This final season, and primarily this finale, single-handedly destroyed his entire character and his purpose for myself. In this final episode, there is this scene where Eren and Armin are in the paths. The last scene where we see these two characters interact. Their goodbye to one another. During their conversation, Eren reveals a lot of new details, one by one. And honestly, I have issues with them. But a massive issue with this one, the big one, the first thing he reveals. Eren killing his own mother. Throughout the entirety of the series, following the events of episode 1, where Eren's mother was brutally killed by the Smiling Titan, his father's ex-wife, Eren was racked with grief and vowed to go on a warpath to kill every last Titan. And then we fast forward to the grand reveal, the secret that lies in Eren's basement. While using the power of the founding Titan, Eren goes through his father's past and learns of the world beyond the walls and the truth regarding the Titan's existence. He learns of the world's two races, the Eldians and the Marlians, him being an Eldian, his people having the blood to turn into a Titan. He learns of the history between the two races, that for 2,000 years, the Eldians and Marlians have been at war, with his people being called the Devils and subjugated to a small island called Paradis Island that's protected by walls away from the whole world, with the Marlians transforming the refugee Eldians they had imprisoned into pure, senseless Titans, killing them and sending them over to their island. Through these memories, Eren learns of the world on the other side and the true enemy, blocking his path to freedom, and alters his wish to kill every Titan, to wage war and wipe out all of humanity. He travels to Mali undercover and is there for 4 years, meets his brother Zeke to form a plan, and then murders an entire city of Marlians in the same vein as when his city was overrun by Titans, to get the Warhammer and form his grand plan, the Rumbling, unleashing millions of Titans trapped in the walls. Keep in mind that through all of this, what set and fueled Eren's hatred for Titans and the world was experiencing the trauma of his mother's death at a very young age. It was his mother's death that made him enraged. It was his mother's death that made him determined to join the Survey Corps, to garner enough strength and weapons to get back at the Titans and later the whole world for taking her away from him. It was his mother's death that made him want to continue on this path to fight for freedom through any means necessary. So when it is revealed, when he says he sent the Smiling Titan to not kill Bertold and to instead kill his own mother, making him the cause of it, and essentially all of this, it lost me. Narratively, this damages Eren's motive sorely to a grave extent. Eren has the power to influence and control the move of every Titan, and the one time he used it, it was to kill his own mother. Why? Why did this need to be written in? As stated, her passing sets the foundation of his motivation. Him interfering with that makes his motivation feel forced and honestly kinda fake. He says he did this to seal his drive, his plan. He says he had to let this happen because he wanted to save Bertold for a future scene. Like, just why? Why do you need to actively start your own motivation by killing the one person you've used as your reasoning to keep going? Why do you need to save Bertold in a future scene instead of stopping him now, when you have the literal power to control Titans? For your plan? For your plan to happen? Does this dude think he's Aizen or something? I just don't get why this needed to be added into the story. It does nothing but hurt the main character's entire drive and purpose. If his mum really needed to die, why couldn't it have been caused by something else? Why did it have to be him specifically? This could have played out in so many other ways. It makes a lot of this wasted. It makes the scene where Eren confronts Reiner and Bertold after finding out their true identities, asking them how they felt the day when Eren confided in them, telling them about his mother's death and how it made them feel hearing about it, learning that they were the ones responsible. A moment where you could feel the betrayal as a viewer, entirely pointless. Having the gall to put the blame entirely on Reiner when he was the catalyst. I used to think that Eren was compelling. I used to think that Eren was deep. He was one of the only characters in the series actively pushing for freedom, cementing this ideal after learning the truth. Time after time, trauma after trauma. Losing his mum made him want to kill all the Titans. Learning the true identities of the armored and colossal Titans made him want to seek revenge and later take back his home at the Battle of Shiganshina against them and the Beast Titan. Learning the truth of the world from the basement made him want to wage war on the world, declaring that he would keep moving until his enemies are dead, for his and his friends' safety. This was an unnecessary and, quite frankly, a stupid plot twist that makes the main character's motivation unearned and undeserved, assassinating his character. All the sacrifices he's made, all the character growth he's been through now literally means nothing. If this was really out of his control as he says it was, then he didn't deserve this power point blank. Time travel in stories usually ends up creating a lot of plot points and key elements of what was built up, making everything a confusing mess, damaging the characters involved. Dragon Ball Super's Goku Black Saga is a perfect example of this, and sadly Attack on Titan follows the same trope of misused time travel. Then he reveals to Armin that he's always loved Mikasa and doesn't want to see her end up with another man and for her to still think of him for at least 10 years.
Bruh.
Naturally at first, I was going to heavily criticize the scene, saying it was forced, quite unbelievable, and came out of nowhere, as Eren throughout the course of the series has heavily mistreated her, snapping at her for every little thing and just getting annoyed whenever she's around. There has not been a single hint in the story where he's loved her romantically. The only thing that comes close was the flashback during the 4-year gap where Eren and Mikasa were in that village alone together. And whilst I still do feel this way to some extent, after talking to some friends on this moment, I realized this was meant to show Eren breaking down about how he doesn't get to have a happy end. No matter how he looked at it, he was always destined to die. And yeah, he doesn't get to have that. He doesn't get to have a future with Mikasa. Because honestly, no matter how you look at it, he doesn't deserve a happy end. His plan was mass genocide, and he almost succeeded by killing 80% of humanity, leaving the remaining 20% to one day continue this war, the conflict unresolved, actively making himself the villain so his friends could get the recognition from the world that they saved them. He said it himself, he is doomed to hell for his sins, so forth the rest of them. Attack on Titan does a good job at showing that despite it all, the very people who fought to stop Eren, even they are not good people. They all have blood on their hands and have killed countless people. You can argue that it was all in self-defense and protection of themselves and their own. They each did what they had to do to survive, sure, but even so, lives were lost. They're not villains by any means, but they're also not saints. It's the cruel message of kill or be killed, and sadly, even they are doomed to hell. And I have to talk about this. I'm going to kick myself greatly if I don't add this part to the video. Everyone in this climax fought to their absolute heart, each struggling mentally and physically, going as far to lose limbs in the process. Levi had it rough, man, I swear. But the one character who I could sympathize with and empathize with the most in the climax was Mikasa. Mikasa Ackerman is a character that a lot of fans love. I personally haven't seen the appeal, and I've never seen the appeal. I thought 90% of her character was centered around her love for Eren, 1% of her being an Ackerman, the series never touched upon this, and the remaining 1% for literally everything else. I struggle to understand why she had such a strong fan base, because I honestly found her to be pretty boring. This though, this climax, this finale, this whole episode made the non-Mikasa fan in me feel for her so bad. She is given the impossible task, to her at least, of being the one to kill Eren. Levi can't, Armin can't, Falco's a bitch, and everyone else can't, except for Mikasa, the only one who is able to kill Eren, the man who saved her life, the man who gave her a new reason to live after losing her biological family and being taken in by Grisha, the man that she loves. And we see her at an impasse, stuck, conflicted. She struggles to face the reality of her task, and she goes back to the good times, when things weren't so dire, and when it was good between her and Eren. But she has no other option. She stands tall, wrapping the scarf around her neck as she responds to Eren's promise in the past, where he says to get rid of the scarf when he dies, saying that she can't. And with the help of those around her, they grant her an opening to get to Eren. But before she does anything, she hesitates for a moment. As Eren's eyes open, the only sight reflecting them are Mikasa's saddened expression. And what happens next is very touching. After Mikasa kills Eren, she grabs his head telling him she'll see him later and gives him a kiss. It's not only a kiss of love, it's a kiss goodbye. She carries his head and walks off to find a place to bury him. A few years have passed and there she sits, next to his grave, in the same place she and Eren were years ago. She is overwhelmed by grief and regret that she never got to confess to the love of her life how she truly felt, and struggles to know how she's going to live life without him. A bird comes, who was obviously Eren, like come on, grabs her scarf and wraps it around her one last time. She smiles and thanks him for doing so. And as seen through the credits, over the span of her life, she visits his grave with her new family until one day she is on her deathbed, buried in the same place as Eren, still wearing that scarf. Mikasa had to say goodbye to Eren even if she didn't want to, and in return, she is left with an unending feeling of sorrow and regret, and even in death, never took off that scarf, loving him till her very end. This broke me. I never thought I'd be feeling this way before I watched the episode. Mikasa truly saved the day by killing Eren, and in return, she suffered the most. She has to live without confessing her love. She has to live with killing her love. She has to live without Eren, resulting in her having a beautifully tragic end. After spending so many years wondering why so many people liked Mikasa, through this finale, I now get it. I now understand. I still do believe that she is a little overrated, but regardless, I can comfortably say that after this finale, I like Mikasa a lot more than I ever did before, and I mean that truthfully. So to summarize it all, my raw, honest thoughts on the Attack on Titan ending. It's not a perfect or even great ending by any means, and it's also not a bad one. But the main question being, did it do it? Did it stick the landing? Yes. This ending fits the series the best way that it could. The ending that makes the most sense. It felt realistic. The theme of there being a continuous war still going on despite everything that was caused to prevent it. The message of that humanity isn't perfect and that there will always be conflict in the world, no matter how much you try to prevent it, really drives it home. And seeing the recent events on what's going on in the world currently, this message couldn't be any more true. It's a grim, harsh reality, and I feel like the Attack on Titan ending captured this wonderfully from a thematic point of view. Going into this, I was heading in with a negative point of view. As for 2 years straight without getting spoiled, thankfully, I was told by close friends and people around me just how bad this ending was and how it ruined the series for them. Obviously, like I said, there are major criticisms that I have with this ending. But even with that, the result would still be the same. Attack on Titan doesn't deserve a happy ending. An ending where Eldia and Marley skip around the field holding hands being the best friends forever and ever, and Eren and Mikasa get married and have 5 children or whatever doesn't exist. And thank goodness it doesn't. However, naturally the fanbase is split. The anime-onlys seemingly love this ending, whereas the manga readers hate this with a passion. Despite its arguably controversial ending, for me, it didn't overshadow the brilliance of this journey. Even if I may not be as big of an Attack on Titan fan as I used to be, I had a great time going through it initially, season to season, even through this final one, no matter how much it left a sour taste in my mouth. However, if anything, this is my first time experiencing an anime for years, and being there to actually experience it ending, as all of the animes I've seen were either already completed or currently still going on. And I have to say, it's a bittersweet feeling. 10 years, a whole decade in the making, and whether you agree or not, Attack on Titan goes down as one of the greats. Thank you, Hajime Isayama, for making this unique story that is loved by so many. And thank you to both Wit Studios and to MAPPA for bringing this vision to life in the best way that you possibly could. The countless memories that came with this, online and personally, are those I will never forget. I quite literally grew up with this anime. So it's going to be weird for a while that it's no longer there, but for what it's worth, I'm glad I got to experience it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a good day.